Often as architects, we find ourselves presented with a clean slate, an empty site. So we put a lot of time and effort and energy into creating something amazing, something that has impact for ourselves and for our clients and also for the community. But more often now we're finding that we're being presented with existing buildings, not often as amazing as this. And we're presented with a whole lot of different challenges, and often that is to do as little as possible. And sometimes to do as little as possible is even harder than starting from scratch. Younghusband is a pretty special building, an existing wool store building that's occupied by a range of different creatives at the moment. But its new client, the new developer that's taken possession of it, wants to take it forward for the next 100 years of its life. This is actually not one of our slides. This is a slide from the marketing website from the client. This talks about, I think it sort of sums up in a lot of ways what an opportunity this site is. It's quite significant in scale. It's about 20,000 square metres of built form over 4 levels, which normally is the equivalent of a 40 or 50 storey apartment building that you can see in the skyline back there. Also, as you can see here, it is such a significant footprint that it stands to have a significant change for the surrounding neighbourhood, not just for the industrial areas that surround it, but also the smaller fine-grain residential. So if you don't know where the site is, it's about just over 4.5 kilometres outside of the CBD of Melbourne. Amazingly well connected to rail network. The new Arden station is going to be just down the road, less than a kilometre away. And amazing road infrastructure as well. When we started to think about the project, we thought about what excites us when we go to new urban environments, new cities, new places. What excites us about the back streets of Melbourne? It is that sense of discovery, and that generated this statement. Here's a photo of the existing laneway. We're very fortunate with this building that it has a granularity to it. It has these internal laneways, bluestone, beautiful, amazing brickwork, a number of little funny things that have happened over the course of the last 120 years. So when we look at this, we go, it's amazing, it's beautiful. We don't need to do much, but we need to do something. So how do we control ourselves to an extent, but also think about what's important for what was once a wool store, converting it to a space for people. So we set up some values to guide us. This is a very, very brief presentation of a much larger one. However, this slide sort of starts to give you an idea of the spaces that are inside. Unbelievably beautiful, unbelievably full of potential, almost like a framework that we can start to plug into and adapt and change. The 3 that we had to make sure we always got a balance of were this idea of sustainability, community and heritage. So sustainability, we're taking the site to the extreme. We're going to be carbon and water neutral, which is going to be a first for a building of this scale, first for an industrial adaptive reuse project. We're very fortunate, again, as with the bones of the building, that we have sawtooth roofs that face north, so we can put on solar to generate power. We have an amazing footprint as well, so we can capture water for reuse. So a lot of the initiatives around sustainability, we haven't designed the building first, we designed the sustainability initiatives first as a green infrastructure or building systems that we can incorporate into the project. In terms of community, there's an amazing community that exists on this site. A community of makers, creatives, there's a co-warehousing business there that deals with e-commerce. So we're very fortunate that we were able to speak to these people, get an understanding of the building, get an understanding of what they like, what's important to them. And that level of engagement is something we often don't get to do when we design a building from scratch. I think that's a really important step. And the client as well drove a whole much broader community engagement process. I alone attended about 6 or 7 meetings. There were another dozen tours and the like for the residents of Kensington to get their input about what's important to their neighbourhood, what's important to them, why they love this building. Part of that idea around diversity, which I talked about at the beginning, is about putting a diversity of mixes or diversity of uses into the project. So it's not just residential. There's actually no residential in this project, which is incredible for Melbourne. Mainly co-working and office space and technology-based businesses, but supported by the arts. Most of the arts component is the existing tenants, so there's a dance studio there, which is quite amazing. Wellness and well-being. There's an existing women's-only powerlifting gym on the site that we want to incorporate, but also use those other elements or other uses to build a village, that's self-sustaining to an extent, but also supports the broader community around the site. And in terms of heritage, as I said at the beginning, our vision is to touch lightly, to only add what we have to add and only take away what we have to take away. This presents a number of challenges from a number of points of view, from building compliance to universal access, all the things that are really important to getting a truly balanced building across those three values that I talked about at the beginning. So we've been in this constant movement of getting the heritage right, but then throwing out the sustainability initiatives, and then vice versa with the community aspects not getting enough in and how to get more in. So we've been fine-tuning the project. We're, again, fortunate to have a client that's gone on that journey with us. This is part of the reason why we want to touch the building lightly. We've got all this amazing character, all this amazing, unique events that have occurred over a period of time that you just can't replicate. Some are beautiful, some are not so beautiful. It's sort of subjective in a lot of ways, but we want to enhance that. We want to continue that tradition. We want to add to the building, adding layers rather than wiping out and starting from a clean slate. And I think that layering, or that adding to, or that the diversity of approaches to a building is quite important. And like we saw in the slide previously about the community, we're designing the master plan, we're designing the base building, but we see a really important role for other designers, other creatives, people who will end up renting the spaces to design their own spaces as well. It shouldn't come from one hand and one voice. Quick overview of the master plan. So stage 1, which is this one in yellow, this is the one we're starting hopefully on site next year, early next year. Stage 2, which will go into for planning later this year or early next year, is to again keep the existing warehouses, but to add a new 8-storey built form element. And where's the most appropriate place for height? Adjacent to the existing flour mill silos that are adjacent to the site. But we've also got this other parcel of land across the road which the client owns, where they want to put in a 2,000 square metre publicly accessible park. That's something they don't have to do, but they see that as an important value add, I guess, for the community that surrounds the site, something that's missing in the area, particularly because of its industrial heritage. That idea of the village, like when you think of the village, you think of European cities or other places, but there's always this town square element, and this is our town square in Younghusband. So you go through one of those small doorways and reveal into this what is quite a public space that connects one of the laneways through to a train line space. And this is where all the people of the building will gather and meet, and then you distribute through this really large footprint. So we're hoping those accidental moments where you'll bump into a neighbour, bump into a friend, someone you might not have seen for a while, and have those chance encounters like you do when you go to a foreign city, as I mentioned earlier. We're very lucky with this building that there are these diversity of spaces, and diversity is a real key for a lot of our design thinking for this project. We have a railway space, we have the beautiful buildings, we have these laneways, and these characteristics of these different spaces allow for different occurrences during the course of a day, and we've actually taken a lot of lessons from these spaces and applied them inside the building. We've carved out spaces to bring light and air into the space, across multiple levels where people can interact and connect, hopefully discover things they haven't discovered before. And being an old wool store, we're not interested as architects and designers, and luckily the client isn't either, of creating a perfect environment, as it seems to be the current obsession with a lot of new buildings. You know, we haven't got ideal floor-to-floor heights. We've got quite compressed ones because it used to store wool. But we have this beautiful high space at the top. And so these different conditions allow for some interesting financial moments within the project, where some of the existing clients, tenants actually, can occupy some of these lower levels, and their rent is subsidised by people on the upper level. So the premium spaces are up the top, higher rents, and down the bottom, lower rents. So we can maintain that diversity. We can have some office tenants, but we'll also have the local artisans maintaining in the space. We're very fortunate to have a client that really wants to push us forward. We don't often have that. We often have clients that need us to do certain things to achieve a certain outcome, whether that be financial or otherwise. We're lucky to have a small group, which is called the Impact Investment Group, that is trying to set a precedent for this kind of development across the city, and hopefully more broadly as well, where they're really interested in sustainability, they're really focused on community, but of course they're a business, they want to make a profit. But all those three elements have to align before a project goes ahead. So a lot of the work that we've been doing has been in discussion with them about getting that balance, so we can set a good example. We can demonstrate to other people, other developers, that this is possible. It's not that difficult. It is hard, but it's not as difficult as some people think. This is just the final slide. But just to show that activation, to show that life, those moments of chance encounter, like I didn't go through a lot of the detail, but even through these laneway spaces, we're designing small elements of seating so people can stop and linger and think, places where people can just sit and prop and have a cup of coffee. These are the things I think of the streetscape that we're all probably accustomed to being in the city of Melbourne or other cities around the world where they don't exist, these little niches, these little moments. So this project really is about that collection of moments. And hopefully we'll see you all there sometime in 2020. Thank you.